process, and we'll walk you through start to finish when applying for positions and what you can do in order to make sure you're putting the best foot forward. So, as a summary on recruiting solutions, I'm going to briefly talk about our company. I know Samantha had introduced us. We were established in 1992. We're a local, independent, women owned business. We really value our quality long term partnerships with both our clients and our field associates. What we do is we match our job seekers with different openings that our clients offer throughout several different service lines, and we're committed to providing the very best talent for our clients. We have over 2 decades of experience in the Columbia, Greenville, and Florence markets. We have connections with top companies and talented job seekers throughout the state. We recognize that every company has individual needs that are unique as well as job seekers, and we do our best to match those. Sometimes companies don't always look for the best fit, but we really are focused on evaluating both hard and soft skills while presenting candidates to our clients for their needs. And our company is just built on our exceptional service delivery. That's something that we strive to do every day. So we have 4 different divisions. We cater to info technology, light industrial, office professional, and executive search branches. And we have the positions that apply to each of those divisions on there. You can always check out our website to see more details on our openings that we have. So to start off with, the first step when on your job hunt is preparing your resume and making sure that it is organized and clearly states your background, your qualifications, and also what you're targeting with your position. So the first tip that I would have is to make sure you format your resume wisely. Typically, when somebody is reviewing your resume, it only gets looked at for 25 seconds. Someone's going to scan your resume to pick out the experience and qualifications that you bring to the table. It's going to be more difficult for that person to read your resume if it's poorly organized or it's multiple pages. I would recommend using logical format, wide margins, and then also using headings as well as selectively using bold or italic, but making sure that you don't use it too much. You just want to help guide the reader's eye. And make sure too to utilize bullets. That's a great way to call attention to important accomplishments that you have. And speaking of accomplishments, making sure that you're focusing on what you did in that job, not necessarily what it was. You want to include a typical or general overview of the job description first, and then list specifically the accomplishments that you had while in that position. And make sure to avoid any generic descriptions of jobs that you might have held in the past. My third tip would be to make sure that you cater your resume to the job that you're applying for. List any relevant experience that is applicable to that specific job. If you know you're applying for a certain industry or a certain position, you want to make sure that your resume reflects that. And also making sure that your resume reflects your experience chronologically. That's going to go along with the clean formatting. And then always have somebody double check your resume, look over it, glance at it to make sure that it's error free and grammatically correct. When you're stating an objective on your resume, it's important to know that employers do read that, but they're really looking for something that'll make you stand out. I would try to avoid using any generic versions of the objective and making sure that you are clearly stating what you are looking to gain from this position, but also what you can offer to them and what the company will gain from hiring you. And always make sure your objective aligns with the position in the industry that you are targeting. And my next tip would be to make sure you have updated contact information on your resume. Make sure your phone number is listed correctly. And if you have a secondary phone number, I would recommend listing that. I also would encourage you to list an email address as a contact method. because the more ways that you give access to contacting you, the easier it'll be for that person to reach out and connect with you. And make sure that you double check that and don't have any errors or mistakes with those contact methods. So the first impression is crucial, and the really first glance would be when you are talking to a potential employer over the phone. If you are leaving a message for a potential employer, I would encourage you to make sure that there's no noise or background information. Always make sure to speak clearly and concisely in that message, and of course make sure it's a professional message. Now, if a potential employer is going to be reaching out to you, I would encourage you to make sure that your ringback tone is a professional song or tone if you do have one set, and always make sure to have a professional voicemail message. And on that note, too, to make sure that you have a voicemail set up, that way the employer can leave you a message and it'll make it easier for them to contact you, leave you the message, and you can get the appropriate details in order to contact them back.
Caroline, I have a question just for our students who might be joining us today. Could you give an example of what a professional voice message might sound like?
Sure. I would stick to the details that are relevant, and just an example could be, thank you for calling me. I'm sorry I was unable to answer your call. This is the voicemail box of Caroline Tracy. Please leave your contact information, and I will give you a call back at my convenience.
Great, thank you.
Sure. So once you get connected with the potential employer, make sure you're in a quiet area with minimal distractions. I would avoid any background noise and anything that might distract you from being able to present your background and qualifications to the best of your ability. If you do receive a call and you're not available, the best thing to do would be to ask the potential employer if you are able to call them back. Just let them know that you're tied up at the moment, but you'd love to talk in further detail and see when a good time is when you can return the call. Make sure to speak precisely and clearly, and treat this as seriously as you would treat an interview. This is another glance at a first impression and making sure you set the example right.
Is this the phone screen? Is that a trend that many employers are going to today?
Sure, this is definitely the first step, and it's somewhat an interview, but it's a more casual conversation, and that's going to be a time for you to connect with the employer. They'll ask you details about your job hunt and what you're looking for. They might go into specifics about your availability or the pay rate that you're targeting, and this will give them a good idea if you would be a good fit for any openings that they currently have.
Great, thank you.
So once you get your foot in the door and secure an interview, definitely make sure to do some research on the company. You want to be prepared and knowledgeable about the organization that you're interviewing with. I would also encourage you to go on the website and browse if there's any potential job postings that you might be interested in. If you're not applying or interviewing specifically for one position, then coming prepared with a list of potential openings, you can ask the interviewer what the status is, and that'll show them that you're prepared and eager to secure employment. I would also encourage you to prepare your dress and attire, which we'll go through in more detail here shortly. And definitely practice. Ask a friend if you can walk through a few questions with them. Make sure you're able to articulate your strengths as well as your experiences as they relate to the job that you are interviewing for. And also body language, and just making sure that you are comfortable and able to present yourself confidently. So now we're going to go through some dressing tips, and first focusing on women. I would encourage you to wear conservative colors, black, blue, gray, and brown. You can have a skirt and blazer or a blazer and pants. would avoid anything low cut. And with the skirt, I would encourage you to have a skirt that's knee length, just to err on the conservative side. I would avoid wearing tight clothing. You want to be as comfortable as possible during this process. Make sure not to expose any undergarments. Shoes should be low heeled, closed toed, and in good condition. I wouldn't encourage you to wear stilettos. Just again, going along the lines of being comfortable and conservative. That way, there's nothing distracting during the interview process. And going along those lines, makeup should be minimal and natural. That goes for lipstick and nail polish. And make sure not to wear a lot of scented body lotion or overbearing perfume. Hair should be styled simply and neat. It should be groomed, and accessories should be minimal. So, really, the takeaway is that you want to present yourself to where there's no distractions. You want to let your background and experience shine during the interview and not let anything take away from that. And we have a few pictures and examples of the correct interview dress and attire. Blazers, pants, suits, all are conservative colors, and all are moderate and conservative in length. So this is definitely a good resource for you to glance back at, to evaluate if your attire is appropriate. And this next slide is going to cover a few interview dress don'ts. Stilettos, high heels, bright colors, a lot of accessories, jewelry, a lot of bright nail polish or lipstick, and just overall making sure you're groomed and you are presenting yourself neatly and conservatively. And now moving forward on dressing tips for men, still going along the same lines for conservative colors, black, blue, gray, or brown. You can wear a suit or khakis and a button-down shirt. A tie is an option if that would suit you, and making sure that with jewelry that is non-distracting, and limit that as well. Making sure your hair is cut and groomed, and if you have any facial hair, making sure it's neatly trimmed. And this is going to go through some examples on interview attire. Suits, button downs, ties are an option. Overall, just neatly groomed. And don'ts would be any articles that are untucked, very wrinkly, anything too casual, hoodies and hats I would stay away from during the interview process. So now that you've secured the interview, when the time does come, make sure to arrive a few minutes early and give yourself plenty of time to find the office. You don't want to be flustered if you're late or you can't find the location, so I would definitely allot enough time. Make sure to bring a copy of your resume with you, even if you think that they already have it. I would always be prepared. You might be meeting with additional people, and definitely being prepared would bode well for this job hunt. And also, I'd encourage you to bring 3 professional references. These are really key for your job hunt as well, and it's going to be a requirement of most employers. Um, and like we had just talked about, make sure that you keep in mind that interviewing does demand you wear conservative clothing. And just going along the lines of first impression, a smile, a firm handshake, and a positive attitude will make a great first impression. Now, during the interview, I would make sure that you're prepared to answer why you left any previous employers. You're going to be talking about your experience, whether it's an internship or a position, a summer job, and make sure that you are able to articulate why that came to an end. I would encourage you not to speak badly of any previous employers. You want to be able to follow a negative with a positive, so making sure that you're able to present that experience in the best light, and making sure that you can present that to the employer correctly. Stay on topic, don't get too off track when you're answering questions, and be honest. If you've had any experiences or anything that you need to disclose, honesty is just always the best policy. Popular interview questions would include talking about your strengths and weaknesses. Now, I would make sure you're prepared for those. If you're having trouble coming up with some, ask some of your friends, family, or coworkers what they think your strengths could be. And I would focus these strengths on your work ethic and capabilities. So make sure it's work related. With weaknesses, this is something that employers typically want to see as something that might be considered a positive or a negative. An example of a weakness could be that you're too hard on yourself. So that's going to show the employer that you take a lot of pride in your work, which is a strength, but it could also be a weakness because you are hard on yourself if there is a mistake or something were to come up. Typically, during the interview process, potential employers will ask you about conflict at the workplace and how you were to handle that. If something were to come up between you and a coworker, for example, I would make sure that you have a previous example ready, and that way you can articulate the conflict and how it was resolved. Making sure that you have those references and their contact information listed. At the end of the interview, I would take the time to thank them and just reiterate your interest in the position or working for that company. And I always send a follow up thank you note or email. I'm a fan of the handwritten note. I think it goes a long way and it shows the employer that you're very interested and that you took the time to thank them for their time, and that'll bode very well in your job hunt. So, this is outlining a few soft skills and how they're ranked by potential employers. The difference between soft skills and hard skills are going to be the experience and events on your resume. The soft skills are going to be more characteristics that you can exhibit. um, Employers are going to be evaluating your communication skills, your follow up, your follow through. That's where that thank you note can come into play. They're also going to be evaluating your decision making and problem solving skills. The conflict question can come into play when determining how you can solve problems and if you're able to think quickly on your toes. Self management skills, teamwork skills, how you get along with other members of the team, and if you would fit well with their team that they have in place. Professional skills, which comes from a variety of first impressions and follow through, background qualifications, experience skills, and leadership skills. And I would encourage you at this point in your job hunts, I would get involved in as many activities as you can to really develop those leadership skills. Employers like to see that you take initiative, but also that you can balance both school and any personal and also extracurricular activities such as activities or organizations that you're involved with that you had exhibited those leadership skills. So after the interview and you get the job, the first impression doesn't stop there. So once you have your start date, you have your new job. Make sure that you're responsive. Make sure that you're able to talk with an employer and get them any information that they need quickly in order to get you started. Be prepared. Come to your first day ready and bring anything with you needed or asked for. And I would encourage you to take notes during training. This is something for you to look back on. And while you're starting your job, if a question were to come up, then you can reference back to your notes where this might have already been covered. And that would just be an example of you being able to problem solve and manage yourself. Again, continue with the professional dress and make sure you're conservative and cleanly groomed. Arrive on time and report to work. Making sure you're a dependable and reliable worker really is crucial. And the first 90 days on the job are typically the most important. This is really when the employee has the opportunity to demonstrate their work ethic and capabilities to the employer, and the first impression is going to continue throughout that time period.
We were just out in the business and industry with some educators a couple weeks ago, and one of the things that I heard from one of our manufacturers was that even though they work from their start time might be 7 o'clock in the morning, they actually mean that's when you should start production. So they really want you there, 10 to 15 minutes ahead of time means arriving on time for them. Because when 7 o'clock hits, they start making their tires. So it was just interesting to hear that perspective coming from an employer, and those few minutes can cost them thousands and thousands of dollars when their workers aren't ready to go. So I just wanted to add that tidbit. It was interesting to me.
Absolutely. And, after you have the job, making sure that you're standing out as a great candidate, I've just narrowed down all the different factors into 3 Ps: professionalism, your ability to present yourself, arriving on time or early, and being able to manage yourself and your workload, your presentation, having a good attitude, being able to work with your coworkers, being a team member and a team player is crucial, and your passion, making sure that you're showing up to work with a good attitude and that you're dedicated, you're willing to put in the work in order to get the job done, whether it might be coming in a little early or staying a little late one night. Employers really like to see that passion and drive through their coworkers and employees. And that concludes my presentation. Do you have any additional questions, Samantha?
I was just going to encourage our participants, if you have any questions, if you'd like to submit those through the chat box at the bottom of your menu screen, please do so. We have a few minutes for Miss Tracy to take some questions from you or your students. Miss Tracy here is a wealth of knowledge and would love to share any experiences with you. We can give you a few moments if you have any questions for us. In the meantime, I would just like to thank you, Caroline Tracy, for joining us this morning and sharing your expertise and your experiences working in human resources and developing that workforce out here in the Midlands and around the state of South Carolina. To our participants, thank you for joining our Ready, Set, Connect webinar series today. MEBA is about to undergo reconstruction of our webinar series and look forward to connecting with you again in the future. We've been doing this for about 18 months now, and we just would like to take a look and see how we can do things a little bit better, improve our processes, and make sure we're meeting your needs and providing you with relevant content. So we'll be following up with you here in the next several weeks to let you know when our next webinar will be. And in the meantime, please feel free to visit MEBA's website and access our archived webinars. I also wanted to point out some of our career resources on the MEBA website that coincide with Ms. Tracy's presentation today. Under our Educator tab, under Resources, we have our Building Your Career Guide. We actually worked in conjunction with Recruiting Solutions several years ago to get that resource guide started, and we would love for you to take a look at that if you haven't. But it takes you and your students through the career planning process, starting from assessment and determining what you want to do, all the way through job searching, learning about the jobs out there and the employment opportunities in the Midlands and South Carolina, and then following through on some of the things that Ms. Tracy discussed today on dressing for success, how to interview. There's actually a whole list of interview questions available in that guide. Mr. Trace Smoke with Recruiting Solutions was crucial to helping us put that guide together several years ago. Great correspondence examples on thank you letters, cover letters, how to write a thank you note follow-up, all kinds of great information, and also some new additions to that guide that include social media and how to or not do's and don'ts for managing social media when you're looking for the job and going through the job hunting process. But again, we don't have any questions, so again, I just want to thank you, Ms. Tracy, for your time today. We do have one. Let's see here. Caroline, you did a good job with the presentation. I like that you carried the tips through the start of the job, which many people overlook. Great. Thank you so much for your comments. We look forward to connecting with you again in the future. And again, thank you, Ms. Tracy, for your time today. Have a great day, everybody.